Okay, question number 35. Again, order of operations. I would urge you to write down your order of operations at the top of your paper so that you're remembering you're going to do what's inside parentheses first, exponents next, multiplying and dividing from left to right, and then adding and subtracting, again, from left to right. These are equally important. Adding and subtracting are equally important. So you don't just do multiplying then dividing or dividing then multiplying. It's as they occur from left to right. So writing that down helps remind you about what your order of operations is. Number 35, then the first thing you do is look at it, look for operations inside parentheses. We have it right here. 1 9/10 minus 2 7/10. You need to think about your integers. This is a positive. I would say this minus sign belongs to that negative 2 7/10. These are different signs, so you're going to subtract. If you prefer putting the plus sign in, yes, this would be the same thing as 1 9/10 plus a negative 2 7/10. If that helps you see that they're different signs, fine, you can do that. I don't tend to do that. I like looking at the original part and just saying this is a positive since it has no sign. This is a negative because that minus sign belongs to the 2 7/10. So you're going to subtract because they're different signs. The larger amount is the negative. You know your answer is going to come out negative, so it's good to put the minus sign first and then go off to the side and do the math. In order to subtract these, you're going to put the larger number on top. Even though it had the minus sign, the 2 7/10 goes on top. The 1 9/10, the smaller number, is what you're going to have to take away. 9 from 7, you're going to have to borrow from the 2. It becomes a 1, and so this becomes 17. 9 from 17 then is 8. 1 from 1 in the ones column is 0. The decimal point comes straight down. The answer for this arithmetic is negative 8/10. Recopy the problem. Bring everything down. So we've got a plus sign that comes down. I could put parentheses around this if it helps to separate the two signs. Bring down the rest of the problem. 5/10 quantity squared times 2 5/10 is in front of that, plus 7/10. All right, so I've done what's inside parentheses. I want to do exponents next. I have an exponent right here. Remember what the exponent means. The 2 tells you that you have 2 of these being multiplied together. Show yourself enough work so that you can get this right. 5/10 times 5/10. Do the arithmetic off to the side. 5/10 times 5/10. 5 times 5 is 25. 0 times 5, or 5 times 0 is going to be 0. 0 times this is just going to be 0, so I'm not going to even tend to show that work. The thing to remember is count your decimal places. You have 2 of them. You need 2 in your answer, so you start at the end and count off 2 places. You end up with 25 hundredths as your answer. It was a positive times a positive, so it is a positive 25 hundredths. Recopy the rest of the problem. Bring down the end of it so it's plus a negative 8/10. There's a time sign in front of the 25 hundredths, and then a 2 5/10 in front of that, and then a plus sign in front of that, and 7/10. All right, we're finished with parentheses, with operations inside parentheses. We have no more exponents. The next thing on our list is to do multiplying and dividing from left to right. We only have the multiplying right here, so we need to multiply these two numbers. Again, I would urge you to go off to the side and do the arithmetic. this is going to be 2 5/10 times 25 hundredths. There's no need to line up the decimal point when you multiply. So it's going to be 0.25. No need to line up the decimal points because you're going to say, forget about the decimal point, act like it's 25 times 25. 5 times 5 is 25, carry a 2. 5 times 2 is 10, plus the 2 is 12. You're multiplying by the 2. It'd be like it's in the tens column, like it's 25. So put a 0 here or move over one space. 2 times 5 is 10. Put down a 0, carry a 1. 2 times 2 is 4, plus that 1 gives me 5. So when I add, I get 5, 2, 6. The decimal point, count your decimal places up here. There are 3 of them. You need 3 in your answer, so your decimal will move in 3 places from the end. The answer for the multiplication is 625 thousandths. So put that into your problem in place of these two numbers, 625 thousandths plus a negative 8/10 at the end, and then plus 7/10 at the start. All right, all we're left with is adding and subtracting, combining integers. I'm going to go from left to right, so I need to add these two numbers. Again, off to the side. When you add and subtract, you line up the decimal points. So the 0, the decimal point, 625. These are the same signs, so we're going to add them. I'll fill in with zeros to help remind me that there's nothing really to add to it. So I get 5, I get a 2, 6 and 7 will be 13, so I put down a 3, I'd carry a 1, and 1 plus all those zeros is just 1. The decimal point stays right in a row when you add and subtract decimals. So that is the answer for adding those. You get 1 and 325 thousandths plus a negative 8/10. I tend to, okay, if you're good with handling it that way, great. I would remind you that when a positive and a negative are right next to each other like that, the negative wins. That's the dirty water story. So that becomes a negative 8/10 or a minus 8/10. So this is 1 and 325 thousandths minus 8/10. Either way, either view it as minus or say that this is a positive and that's a negative. There are different signs. We need to subtract. We need to take the smaller one away from the larger one. So put the larger number on top, 1.325, 1 and 325 thousandths. You want to take away 8/10. Line up the decimal points when you add and subtract decimals. Okay, I went off the screen. Line up the decimal points when you add and subtract decimals. Fill in with zeros. 5 from nothing, or 0 from 5 is 5. Nothing from 2 is 2. 8 from 3, we'd have to borrow. This becomes a 0. This becomes 13. 8 from 13 is 5. The decimal point comes straight down. Nothing from nothing is 0. That is it. 525 thousandths. And the larger amount was positive, so our answer is a positive 525 thousandths.